Welcome to the Intelligent Builder podcast, sponsored by Plutus Agents. Today, I'm joined by Craig Williams, the owner of Excalibur Pest Control, co-host of the Homeowner Show, and a key figure inside the net. So that's a business networking organization built around relationships, accountability, and really operator growth. So Craig has spent years running a home services business and building community around local operators and doing something unique in the space by actually helping those established legacy businesses understand how to use modern technology in a way where it's practical and not overwhelming, which a lot of people think it is. So that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. So Craig, it's great to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no, of course. So I kind of want to start back at the beginning, right? So you've been running Excalibur for a while now. You're also the co-host of the Homeowner Show.
Mhm.
So most operators struggle to really just keep their own business alive. So how are you doing both of those things at once?
Honestly, the biggest reason is I have a lot of support. My wife is a big supporter. We're actually in business together. I think that's actually a key component as to why I'm able to do so much of what I do is I have support from my family, and my kids are excited about business. Like my daughter started her own business just this year at 17 doing meal prep. And so like it's a very entrepreneurial family in general. It's what we spend a lot of time talking about is, like how we're running our businesses, and they're actually all employees of ours too. We have 3 kids and they all work for the business. And so, a lot of people talk about like work-life balance. I think that's a sham. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that that's helpful. I think that just frustrates people because there are going to be seasons where you need to spend a lot of time on your business. And then there needs to be like defined seasons or, like a week or like whatever your vacation where you're not working on your business. And so like to try and pretend that you can find this magic balance where emergencies and opportunities don't come up is just a facade.
So I love that perspective. It's kind of similar to Hormoz's perspective on work-life balance too. It's just people can't think of it like a straight line, you know? But at some point too, you shifted into the educator side of things. You were paying attention to what other operators were doing, or I guess really not doing. So when did that shift happen? What was it like? You said you're one of the 4 pillars of the net. So could you talk to me a little bit more
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason I was really even considered a pillar was because of the podcast, was because we had shifted our business mindset was we needed to be able to communicate and educate our community about what our business did. And as we became the people who were educating about our business, we started helping other people educate the community about their businesses. And so that really shifted, from me helping my business to me helping other businesses. And if you're going to be a good educator, you have to be a good learner. And so I've just had to develop really, really quickly a way to quickly learn and then dispense information back to other business owners so that I could be more helpful to them. Because if I'm not helpful to them, I'm not serving my role properly. And so now I have, teams. We just opened our 15th team, and every team has an education chair who is a business owner in their own right or a business operator in their own right, and their job is to report back to me as to how education is going in their team. Because I can't oversee 15 teams. That's ridiculous. And so their job, we have like a closed chat that we use. I think we kind of bounce back and forth between Facebook Messenger and Slack. Slack's a little new for a lot of people who have been in business for a while, and it can be a little frustrating to get on there. So we use both. But what I do is I have I have topics that I'm interested in, and I'll tend to lean more into those. But then I'll also get feedback from all of my team members saying like, my team's struggling with this. This is something that we're, like a lot of people don't know about. And so I'll go and gather resources, and then I will distill those resources. Honestly, I'm using a lot of AI to watch YouTube videos for me and then create infographics that I can then hand back to my education team and say like, "Hey guys, you asked for this. Here's some helpful information." Sometimes it'll be 1 video, sometimes it'll be 5 videos. Sometimes it'll be an article or something, but I'll read it, I'll look over it, and then I'll have AI go through it and pull the key points out of it, create an infographic, feed it back to them so that they can have slides and things that they can, then distill back to their teammates. It took a while to get to where we're at now, how we do it, because like when we first got started, it was just me.
That's awesome. You're able to leverage the AI in terms of those YouTube videos because that's something that would just consume your time for hours and hours. But it's cool because you could still relay the same information you would have if you actually watched them. So that's
Oh,
actually
it's
a good
not the
segue into
same.
the
It's not the same.
yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah. No, that's awesome, really. And it segues well into technology too, because I bet a lot of these businesses, they've been operating for, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So they're more on the legacy side of things. It's tough to adapt to the constantly changing technology. So how does that how does that work for you? Are you teaching a lot of technology or teaching a lot of maybe techniques or processes to adopt?
I think more of what we're teaching is mindset, because anybody can teach a monkey to press a button. I mean, really, you can train a dog on how to open the back door to let themselves out to go to the bathroom. So, like teaching technology, I don't think is that helpful because then I'm pulling you into what I think is best. Like I'm because even right now, like we're doing this podcast, you're on Riverside. I don't use Riverside. It's not to say that Riverside is bad. It's what works for you. But you had to go through the process of saying, okay, like what features am I looking for? What's gonna take most off of my plate? And these are calculations that everybody has to go through every day. And rather than going like, what is everybody else using? Like, what is going to give me the most freedom? What's going to give me the most time back? What's gonna because there's things in everybody's business that people enjoy doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone into business in the first place. For me, I'm going to push away as much bookkeeping and taxes and all that back end office stuff. I can't stand it. Could I do it? I could. But like if I can't find a person to do it, I'm going to find an application to take that off my plate because I don't want to do it. It does not breathe life into me or however you want to put it. But, when you talk about having conversations with customers, when you start talking about doing the marketing, doing content creation and all those kinds of things, I'm gonna keep that for myself where I'm gonna get my hands dirty as much as possible. Doesn't mean that I couldn't find an application to do those things for me. I could, but I enjoy that part of my business. And so I'm gonna keep as much of that as I can because I want my business to breathe life into my everyday. Otherwise, it's just gonna become rote and unimaginative and uncreative and all those things. I think everyone and so I circling back to your original question, what I'm teaching most of the time is like mindset is how are you thinking about your business? How are you thinking about your role in your business? How are you thinking about, the other people in your business and what their roles are going to be and what things do you need to automate and what things do you need to keep in house? Because those are going to be different for every single business. And most people who are owner operator, which is tends to be kind of what we deal with. We have a lot of people that have businesses for a long time, but like on average, most people's businesses are 5 years young or less. And so they're in the early stages of creating legacy. And so they don't, they're most people that we meet have experience in their industry and they've moved into entrepreneurship in the field that they have experience in. And so they're having to figure a lot of stuff out that they used to have taken care of for them. And that can be brutal.
Especially in, the home services and the residential contracting. That's a lot of what the businesses are like now. What do you think are some of the common things that hold those owner operators back from delegating work like, the taxes, the bookkeeping, and things like that?
Money. Every time it's money because you rationalize in your brain that it's going to cost me money. And so the more I can do, the less I have to spend. Rather than the more I spend, the more time I have to leverage my talents on the things that I'm creative about and that actually bring the business money. Because if you're spending your time on things that make you miserable at work, you're gonna naturally avoid them. You're gonna naturally find ways to not do them right then. And so you make this weird algorithm in your head of like, if I do that, it's just gonna cost me a lot of money. And so I don't want to spend money because I don't have a lot of money. And like the old adage is true. Like you do have to spend money to make money. And you do, I mean, like the only thing that you can do in your business that's really efficient is to buy back your time. And I think that's like a Dan Martell thing. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I think he wrote the book like Buy Back Your Time. Is that right? Yeah. Which is it's a brilliant book. It's a brilliant idea. No, but I think most business owners are there. It's not that they don't believe it. It's that they're scared that they'll fail at it, that they'll spend money in places that actually won't give them their time back because they've never done that before. But like, the unfortunate part about that is you got to fail in order to figure some stuff out.
I've been listening to podcasts about that, buying back your time. So
Right.
this is really more of a a mindset thing, like you said, you're teaching mindset. So let's say someone had a bad experience where they made an investment to buy back their time and it didn't go well. So then
Mm.
they kind of have a little bit of, I don't want to do that again next time.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you would try to help them navigate that, trying to get back into buying back their time?
When it comes to this, usually what happens when someone does that is that they didn't have conversations with other people who had. And so one of the quickest ways that you can learn is you can talk to other people that have already failed. And typically the people who have already failed are the people who are ahead of you because they've already failed and they learned the lesson and they moved on from it. And so like if you can find someone in your life, and I think this is good advice for anybody. I mean, whatever stage of life that you're in, whether you're in high school or college, whatever, like if you can find somebody that's at the place that you want to be and you can just go to them and ask them, how did you do that? Most people are willing to share that information. It's not like some secret society where you got to kiss the ring and bow the knee. Like most people are happy to share like how they moved past failure. And there's plenty of people not that haven't been able to achieve that right away. And so if you can find somebody that's been persistent and that has had success, and you can see that they're not spending time on the thing that you don't want to spend time on, you can ask them how they did it. But like I don't really know another way to do that other than you can either do it yourself and figure it out yourself, which is extremely valuable. I mean, I think most people undervalue the importance of failing and creating resilience in yourself and mental resilience. So, and okay, it didn't work out that way, but just believing enough to say, like, I know that there has to be a way to get this off my plate. I know that there has to be a way to automate this task. I know that there has to be a person that has the aptitude to achieve this goal so that I don't have to do it anymore and that we can both make a lot of money together. Like just having that particular mindset. And so like that's the thing is like just can you see people around you that have achieved this thing? Can you see people that have knowledge that they could potentially hand off to you and you're just shy and unwilling to ask? That's most people's problem is they think that being vulnerable is some sort of weakness between entrepreneurs and business owners and things like that. And it's one of the most powerful questions that you could ask another person is how did you do the thing that you do? How did you get past this? And even if they haven't done it, having a group of like 3 or 4 other people go like, "I'm struggling with this. Do you guys struggle with this?" And sometimes just putting your heads together with other people in an honest conversation and saying like, "Look, this sucks and none of us like doing it. Could we figure this out together?" Yeah, you probably could.
Mentorship is so powerful. If you can really meet someone that's where you're at and you can ask them questions like that, it's super helpful. I mean, there's always, those people selling courses and they're not good, but finding a true mentor that's really where you're at it can be super helpful. But you mentioned on the, just not realizing things are possible at times, like, oh, I can automate this, or oh, someone could do this for me, things like that. So that's something I've actually seen, a business having the same CRM for 20 years and they didn't realize it can connect and save them all this time to all this stuff. So what's maybe an example of that you've seen in these businesses you talk to maybe at the net or as you're educating them? They've done it this way
Yeah.
for so long, they don't realize that they could do it this way and it's so much better.
I think a big one for a lot of companies is getting past their own insecurities online. Most people think that there's no one that wants to hear what they have to say. And I'm speaking specifically into like content creation. There's a lot of business owners and operators who have a lot of intelligence and wisdom to share in their particular field of specialty. For whatever reason, they think that no one wants to hear the same thing over and over and over and over again, but that's just not true. What people connect with is your consistent ability to share a truth and get that out there. Like, in my business as an example, every spring, I internalize the idea that no one wants to hear about termites this year because that's what we're dealing with right now. No one wants to hear about mosquitoes. No, we talked about that last year, and people are tired of hearing me talk about that. And that's just not true. What it is like people want to be reminded, like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a problem I need to be aware of. And so the more that I can consistently educate people about what it is that I do, better and the front of mind, tip of tongue. Are they and so like you have to get past that awkwardness of I already said this. I said it once and so that should be good enough. No, like consistently say the thing, but like business owners get so caught up in this. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to be repetitive. I don't want like, no, just, be okay with looking stupid because people are going to think you look stupid no matter what you do. So might as well just, communicate anyway. But, you know, say the thing and say it again and again and again and again until you don't have to say that thing anymore. And then you have a team of people that are happy to say the thing. I think that's but like most people just don't want to put their face in front of that camera. Like there's some sort of insecurity. There's like whatever it is. And I'm just like, get past it, man. Like people need to hear from you because you provide a valuable thing.
A lot of what you're saying sounds like you sounded like Gary Vee in a way. So what do you think is, or how important do you think building a brand is alongside building a business, or the business is the brand?
Uh, I think it's tricky because I love Gary, and I've read his books. I think what he says is, I think what he practices is incredible. I just don't know that everybody has the bandwidth to be Gary. And so like when he says like you need to be putting out 30 pieces of content a day or whatever the number is that he's saying, like that is just not in most people's wheelhouse. And like I'm not making excuses for people. Look, if you want to make 30 pieces of content, go make 30 pieces of content. But like you're probably going to be spending 3 or 4 hours. The average business owner is going to be spending 3 to 4 hours out of the day creating content if they're going to be doing that because they don't have the mechanisms, they don't have the team and all that kind of stuff. That being said, building a brand is one of the most crucial pieces that you can do. The tricky part for, smaller businesses is that you end up being the brand. Like you, the individual, end up being the brand. And that's a hard circle to get out of, because the goal is eventually like there's just this thing and it's the brand, because no one looks really at Nike, for instance, and thinks back to the guy that started it. And I think most of us don't even remember who that is anymore. We just think of like the brand Nike because it's the shoe company, it's the athletic company, but like we don't think about the person anymore. So it grew beyond that person, or whatever the company is. We can all think of brands that we know that aren't necessarily attached to a person's face, you know. But like I think Gary is also sort of in that trap, you know, because I don't think that he could have the marketing business that he has without him at this point. And so he's sort of trapped, in my opinion. I'd be interested to see if he could do it. Could he have a marketing business without him being in the business? And I think that's most people's goal is how do you get outside of that and just have the thing? But like that's why he has to do 30 to 40 pieces of content a day because he is the brand. I don't have the magic wand to know how to fix it. I just know that that's the struggle. This is a struggle for me too. Like when we built the podcast, I very specifically did not put my face on the logo or my co-hosts. I mean, most people that watch, I mean, like they all know who we are, but like, I see other podcasts that like it's like the logo, but then there's like the person's face because, and it's a powerful connection. But like, what happens if I ever want to sell that show and I want to hand it off to another host? I think about are you familiar with the podcast Bigger Pockets? Yeah. So, I mean, like those guys have never attached a face to their logo and I think they've had like 4 different hosts of that show now and successfully transitioned it. And so like they, in a way, developed a brand without having to attach it to a face. Now, there's a lot of people who will say, well, I miss such and such when he used to host the show. And it's like, yeah, but you still listen. They still provide valuable content. So like they did it well. We like, when we got started, we kind of modeled a little bit what we were doing off of how they had branded things.
That's super, super interesting. The part of mentioning the owner being the brand, really, because I feel like a lot of the bigger names are like that. Like even Hormozy and Dan Martell, like we talked about earlier, like
Yeah.
they kind of really are the brand, and it is tough to get out of that cycle. Very curious how they plan to kind of navigate that when they do want to get out. But
I imagine some of them don't, like
yeah,
I mean, and it's not a criticism, but they have enough ego that they're like, I want to be the brand. You think about, like the PBD podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Patrick Bet David, like that show will never work without him. It just won't because it is the PBD. It's the Patrick Bet David. The same reason that the Joe Rogan podcast will never work without Joe. And some guys are just okay with that. And I think it's fine because they're massively successful. So like they're, but like for some people, that's, they want to be in the spotlight as little as possible. And so the trick is getting into the spotlight enough to build your brand so that you can eventually step out of it.
Really can tell how you're the educator at the net. But let's actually jump back to the net because you talked a little bit about asking people questions,
Mhm.
talking to people that have the success that you're looking for. So do you think joining a community like that or a network like that and just simply being around those people, even if you don't go up and speak to them, just being around them is helpful in a way?
100%. Yeah. I mean, there's certain people that just give off the right kind of energy that want to make that make you want to be a better owner, that make you want to be a better operator, that make you want to have, better ethics in your business, to be more involved in your community. That's a huge aspect of what we do in our organization. Like this last year, we doubled the size of our charitable giving event. We'd started with 100 businesses that care. Last year we did 200 businesses that care. We gave away $10,000 to 4 different nonprofits. And that's not to brag, but that's a huge aspect of who we are, is like we're going to create opportunities for you to actually get involved in your community. And so, yeah, so being around people who are also generous with their time, generous with their money, all this, that that is contagious, is probably the best way to put it. And so like you can either be part of the group who's participating in these things, or you can be the outsider who's selfish and self-contained and, really just wanting to achieve the things that you want to achieve. Or you can begin to have relationships with people in the organization who are actually going to be the people that help you grow. They're going to be the people that say your name behind closed doors because they recognize that you're involved in the community, you genuinely care about what happens, and you're actually going to do what you say. One of the ways that we even designed the organization, there's lots of different ways to network. There's organizations like ours that you can pay gobs of money to be in. There's, chambers of commerce and different things like that. Ours is designed to be relational. And so what that means is, we don't want, none of our members are required to refer another member, even if they're in their group. Like you could be like the most perfect match on the face of the planet. It could be a real estate agent and a lender, and they could be in the same group, and neither one of those people have to refer the other one if they think that it wouldn't be beneficial to them. And so, they can have relationships outside of that. They can still be in that same group. And so we don't require you to refer or give leads to anybody in your team. What we do require you to do is to have at least 2 one-to-ones a month. And so we just want you to have a relationship with the people in your group, because the more that you know them, the more that you understand who they are, what their background is, what their family life. Are they going through a divorce? Did they just have a child? Could I send them a care package? I mean, like, we want it to be a relational thing, because the people that you have a relationship with are the people that you're going to want to do business with. And so it's much easier and organic for people to say, you know what? I know Mike. He's got a landscaping company and he could take care of this, no problem. He did it for me. And so it's not forced. And so many of these organizations, they want you to spend thousands of dollars every single year to be part of their, thing, and then force you to say the name of the people that they put you in the group with. And it's like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound appealing to me at all. I want to share my friends. And so we're like, okay, well, let's create an opportunity for people to have more friends in business. It just made sense to us.
It's a lot of sense because, like you're saying, there's a lot of networking communities that or groups that like promise referrals, relationships, and all this stuff. And like you said, you got to pay a lot of money to do so. But
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like the real reason it works is because it just accelerates business improvements through the relationships and the educative aspects of it too. How exactly does the education piece work?
We meet twice a month. I mean, it's two meetings a month. So basically every other week. And so there's usually a 5 to 15 minute segment of that meeting that's usually about an hour and a half long, where there's a presentation. And that can look like a lot of different things. Some people, the education we give a lot of autonomy to that education chair. Like they don't have to do what I say or like recommend or any of that kind of stuff because every group is different. We also allow them to resource outside of their group. So sometimes that can actually be like a really good recruiting tool for the teams to like bring in somebody who has a specialization in a particular area that they can come in and do a presentation to the team. For instance, we had a guy come to two of our teams recently and did a presentation on how you can be discoverable on AI. Because, I mean, newsflash to business owners out there, I don't know if you know, but people are using AI as a search engine rather than an assistant. And so they're looking for your business and they, and if you don't believe me, just like go to whatever AI platform that you're using and ask it about your business near you. Like, who are the top air conditioning companies in my area? And if you're on a list, you might have some some questions that you need to answer. Like don't take my word for it. Go and look and see like where the metrics are moving on people using, ChatGPT as a search engine. I mean, the numbers are there. Google is losing ground, and it's not a bad thing. Uh, it's just not. So anyway, that's how that works in the meetings is we have about 10, 15 minutes. And as far as like from my own personal I learned a long time ago that I can't know everything. And so I'm just a voracious, curious person. And so I'm typically working in my truck most of the day. I'm out and about, doing inspections and different things like that. My truck has always been my classroom. I mean, for like the last 20 years, it's been my classroom. Whether that's I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to speeches that I can find on YouTube, and like whatever I can get my hands on that's curated about my problem in my business or my personal life at that moment in time. I'm going to find as much as I can from all these different perspectives so that I can formulate my ideas in my head. And then, I'm going to distill that for me personally. And then I have the information that I can hand off to other people because, at this point in my life, people are asking me like, what do you think about this? When it used to be, what do all these other people think about this? And, I got good at sharing, like, well, such and such thinks this about this. But over here, such and such thinks about this. And now it's like, well, I think this about this because I've looked into this. And you can take it or leave it, but I don't care. So that's kind of been the big takeaway for me is just like learning how to learn. I think there's a couple good books on that. I mean, The Art of Learning. I think that's like a Josh Waitzkin book. Really, really good about just learning how to learn. And and just my 2 cents. School doesn't teach you how to learn. School teaches you how to regurgitate facts. It doesn't teach you how to learn. I had a couple of good teachers early on in my life that really taught me like how to learn, and it just became a habit and a passion ever since then. And so learning is only as valuable as the ability to then hand that information off to other people, because if it's just for you, then it's just selfish indulgence. And so then learning how to communicate and give that information back to other people is again, my opinion, one of the most valuable skills that you can have, because then you become the source. But like, you don't want to ultimately be the source. You want to be the guy that's teaching other people how to go become the source for other people.
Absolutely agree on the lifelong learning thing. You really need to be always digesting information. And like you said, you take a lot of different perspectives. So you can then take that into almost a holistic view of something and then really have your opinion on it too, which is really great,
Yeah.
especially being in the educating space. And then you mentioned AEO. So, AI, search and optimization, things like that. That's super big now. But, based on everything you've seen in talking to operators, what are some areas where you think technology is getting oversold to operators, whereas things like AEO can actually be genuinely beneficial?
Tell me AEO. I'm not familiar with the acronym. Say it again.
All right, so AEO is like SEO, so search engine optimization,
Oh,
but
okay. I got
AEO
you.
is like AI engine optimization.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, I just hadn't heard it put like that before. And so then where business owners getting trapped or stumbling in the technology space?
There's some things that are genuinely useful, but then there's things that are oversold. Like you don't really need this. It doesn't help as much as this other thing would do.
It's business to business, man. I mean, like again,
True.
like if like some people are really good at writing, right? And they enjoy writing. But there's AI programs that help people writing that suck at it. There's some people that are really good at taking pictures for their business. There's some people that are really good at taking videos for their business. There's some people that are really good at just talking in front of a camera, but like okay, here's one that I think is going to trip a lot of people up is the AI replacement. And so you can take a picture of yourself, you can take videos of yourself, and there's programs that will then recreate you. And like 11 Labs will record your voice and then be able to reproduce your voice saying whatever. I think that, you know, Hollywood has been screaming about this for years now. Like, you can't take our image, you can't take our likeness, you can't take our voice. And there's a reason, is because once it's out there, anyone can take it and do whatever they want with it. And that in particular is going to trip up a bunch of lazy entrepreneurs who are going to hand off their likeness and hand off their voice. And they're going to lose that muscle of presentation. They're going to lose that muscle of communication. And it's not just going to be on the content that we're putting out on, like, Facebook or LinkedIn, whatever. Like, they're going to lose that skill in person because it becomes so easy to click that button and say this thing and do this, and they're not going to be doing it anymore. I think that's going to trip a lot of people up. But like the rest of them, again, I think it's person to person. I tell people all the time, we were early adopters into video editing for our show. It's not because we don't know how to do it. I have a background in audio engineering. My co-host has a pretty significant background in video editing. And it's not that we can't do these things, but when we started using AI to make our clips and different things like that, I got about 20 hours of my week back, because for the longest time, I was just like cutting and pasting and moving and doing it. I hated it. And it's not that I couldn't do it. I was pretty good at it. But like, I like my 20 hours, and it cost me about $30 a month. So like, it was an easy negotiation on that one. But like, again, I think everybody has to sort of examine what it is that's robbing their time, that could give them more time, but also create more value in their business. And it's going to be different for every single person. But I do think, like I mentioned, I think cheating in communicating, I think that's going to be the thing that I think that's going to be something that differentiates a lot of people, because eventually over time, people are going to be able to figure out, like, that ain't you.
So you mentioned the thing about voices, like 11 Labs. I believe it was Matthew McConaughey. Like, people were cloning his voice or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess now actors like that can have legal documents where you can't do that anymore. So I wonder how that's going to be impacting, I guess, the business space, like with people like we were talking about Dan Martell, Gary Vee, people cloning them and making videos and things
Uh-huh.
like that. I wonder how that's gonna evolve. But you mentioned also utilizing the technologies to get back your time, kind of like we talked about earlier, and really just
Yeah.
create leverage in the business. So I'll ask you one more question. So looking at I guess just the landscape of business in general, maybe I was gonna ask about legacy businesses, but you said a lot of them are kind of on the younger side too, and I think it matters both ways in terms of adoption for technology. So what happens, or what do you think, in your opinion, will happen to the ones that don't adopt or adapt really to the
Uh-huh.
technology changes that are happening? Is that a slow decline, or you think it's going to be pretty rapid descent?
Oh, it's going to be a quick death without a question. I think we're going to see a lot. I forget the numbers on where the average age is of entrepreneurs currently, but it's pretty high, the age. And like, we're talking guys in their late 60s, early 70s. And within 5 years, those businesses will either die or be sold, especially if those owners are unwilling to adapt and or bring on people that make them adapt. And I think that's probably the best strategy for most of them, is to just kind of take a step back and let other people run the business and bring them into the new era, because everyone else is going to be able to run so much faster and cheaper than you, it's unsustainable. I tell people the example in my business. Like, I was truly blessed. My folks built an incredible business from the time I was talking to my wife about. I think it was like I was 14 when my parents bought the business that we own now. And but when I started taking things over, which was not that long ago, we were handwriting tickets on carbon paper. And most people don't even know what that is anymore. If I said those words and like the people listening to this show actually know what that is, you're old. You're just old. But that's how we did things. It took me so long to get us out of that because why? It was the way we'd always done things. And so there's this trap in your brain that says like we can't change it. We can't change it because when we change it, we're going to lose who we are, and we're going to lose information, and it's going to expose us and all these kinds of things because when you're successful, you don't want to expose any sort of weakness to the public, right? And that's your fear is like, when I change things, I'm going to reveal that I don't understand things and that I don't know things. And that's going to make me look foolish. And I don't want to put that idea in front of my clients. But again, when you have a business that can, I'll just use mine as a for instance, rather than me looking at a big map and going, okay, my guy has a route and I can put him here and here and here and here, instead of distilling all of that into like an AI program and saying like, can you route my techs for the next 3 months and give me the most efficient, tight groups that have same services and techs that, and like it can do all of that stuff for you if you give it the right parameters. The person that has the ability to do that is going to move so much faster and so much efficiently. I mean, like, you just think about it right now where like, you have guys like me that have a lot of trucks out on the road, the amount of gas that you can save because, we're bombing Iran and gas prices are through the roof. You know, you can be the guy that makes a lot more money because you're not burning as much gas. I mean, just little things like that it gives you the ability to make changes in your business. When you can do that, you're going to outperform and the other ones are going to die quick. And it's going to be, it used to be that people said like, well, if you don't have a website, you're eventually going to go out of business. And people were saying that looking like 15 years down the road. This kind of technology that we're dealing with, and it's going to get exponentially faster and faster and faster and faster. It's not going to be like 10 years down the road. It's going to be like 2 or 3 years where the other guy's moving so much faster and so much more efficiently that you can't compete. And you either have to sell or just shut the doors.
This is awesome. This is seriously a really good conversation. Really something that I feel like the audience needs to hear, and just all business owners in general. I mean, we got into some specifics, but the general advice that was given was really great. But before we close out though, is there anywhere people should connect with you? Maybe a website, LinkedIn, the Homeowner Show, anywhere you're most active?
Yeah, any of those, honestly. I mean, you can find me Excalibur Pest Control, you can find me Homeowner Show, you can find me through the net. Any of those. I mean, I'm like my personal page, you know, I'm easy to find. Any of those that, it makes you feel the most comfortable. Get a hold of me.
Okay, I'll link something below so people can find you pretty easily. But for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to the Intelligent Builder. You found this episode valuable. Make sure to share with another operator who's maybe putting off the technology conversations. But I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.